Before he became America's favorite scruffy deputy on Gunsmoke, fans believed Ken Curtis was the kind of man who got along with everyone. Festus was loyal, humble, and full of heart, and for decades viewers assumed the man behind the character was the same way. But Ken's real life was far more complicated. Behind the cameras and away from Dodge City, Curtis carried private grudges, bitter disappointments, and a handful of Hollywood feuds he rarely spoke about. And what almost no one knew is that before his death, he finally broke his silence. He named the 5 actors he truly despised, the ones who crossed lines he could never forgive, the ones whose names he carried with him until the very end. Today, we uncover those 5 names and the stories Ken Curtis kept hidden for a lifetime. Let's get started. At the top of Ken Curtis's list was James Arness. Arness wasn't just the lead actor on Gunsmoke, he was the show. For 2 decades, he embodied Marshal Matt Dillon, his towering frame and quiet authority dominating every scene. Audiences loved him, but standing beside a star of that magnitude wasn't always easy for the actors around him. Ken Curtis, meanwhile, brought Festus Hagen to life with such charm and originality that he quickly became a fan favorite. Still, no matter how popular Festus grew, he remained the deputy, always a step behind Arness's Marshal. Over the years, whispers circulated that Curtis sometimes felt overshadowed, wishing Festus received the same level of recognition. Whether those feelings were genuine or just speculation, one thing remains undeniable. Together, Arness and Curtis created some of the most memorable and beloved moments in television history. Second on Ken Curtis's list was Milburn Stone. Stone, who played the sharp-tongued but warm-hearted Doc Adams, had been with Gunsmoke since day one. After years on the show, he carried a natural authority both on-screen and behind the scenes. By the time Ken Curtis joined the cast, the core group had already settled into a familiar rhythm, one that wasn't always easy for newcomers to step into. According to people who worked on the show, Curtis and Stone didn't always see eye to eye. Their disagreements usually centered on scripts and screen time, 2 areas where both men were known to be strong-willed clashes. Happened, but their professionalism kept any friction from spilling into their performances. In fact, some say the subtle tension between them gave their scenes an added layer of authenticity. Then came number 3, producer John Mantley. Unlike the rumors surrounding some of Curtis's other relationships, this feud was very real. Mantley ran Gunsmoke with a firm hand, strict budgets, tight scripts, and very little room for actors to push back creatively. That approach didn't sit well with Curtis, especially as Festus grew into one of the show's most popular characters. Curtis believed Festus deserved more screen time and more respect in his paycheck. Mantley didn't always agree, and the two reportedly clashed more than once over creative direction and compensation. Their tug-of-war was one of the rare backstage conflicts that people openly acknowledged, a sign of just how strongly Curtis felt about his character and his place on the show. Fourth on Ken Curtis's list was Amanda Blake. Amanda Blake's Miss Kitty was the beating heart of Dodge City, fiery, independent, and endlessly charismatic. For years, she was one of Gunsmoke's brightest stars, adored by viewers and deeply woven into the fabric of the show. But as Festus grew more popular, quiet whispers of tension between Blake and Curtis began to circulate. Some claimed Blake didn't love seeing Curtis rise in prominence, feeling it shifted attention away from her long-established role. Others believed the rumors were nothing more than fan-fueled exaggerations. Still, stories of on-set friction persisted. And yet, when you watch their scenes together, the chemistry between Kitty and Festus feels completely genuine. Whether any real tension existed or not, it never touched their performances, a testament to just how professional both actors were. And finally, number 5, Dennis Weaver. Long before Ken Curtis ever set foot on the Gunsmoke set, Dennis Weaver had already become a television favorite as Chester Good. Marshal Dillon's original deputy Chester's limp and homespun charm made him unforgettable. And when Weaver left to pursue new opportunities, fans weren't sure anyone could ever fill his shoes. That's when Curtis stepped in as Festus Hagen. Comparisons were inevitable, and some say Curtis always felt the weight of following such a loved character Weaver had moved on, but his legacy lingered. And fans often speculated that Curtis may have quietly resented working in that shadow, even though Festus eventually became just as iconic. Whether Ken truly disliked Weaver or simply felt the pressure of replacing a fan favorite, one thing remains clear. Taking over that role was no easy task, and Curtis managed to do it with remarkable skill. Hearing the 5 names he couldn't stand gives us a glimpse into the private frustrations Ken Curtis kept hidden for decades. But to truly understand why certain people left such a mark on him, we have to step back and look at the man behind Festus. So who was Ken Curtis, really? Ken Curtis, born Curtis Wayne Gates on July 2, 1916, grew up far from any Hollywood glamour. His childhood was spent in a jailhouse in Lamar, Colorado, where his father served as sheriff and his mother cooked meals for both inmates and family. While other kids played in open yards, Ken's early world echoed with clanging cell doors and footsteps on concrete. It was an unusual beginning, one that stayed with him forever. Though he showed musical talent early on, the Great Depression pushed him toward practical goals. He enrolled in Colorado College to study medicine, trying to follow the stable path his parents hoped for, but music pulled at him too strongly. After 2 years, he walked away from medical school and chased his passion, risking everything at a time when America was still recovering and war was on the horizon. His gamble paid off. In the early 1940s, he joined Tommy Dorsey's orchestra as a vocalist, stepping into the spotlight not long after Frank Sinatra left. Ken's warm voice and easy presence won audiences over quickly. On Dorsey's advice, he dropped his birth name and became Ken Curtis, a name he would carry into fame. From there, his career continued to rise. He became the lead singer for the Sons of the Pioneers, lending his voice to classics like Room Full of Roses and Ghost Riders in the Sky. He even hosted a short radio program, Chuckwagon Jamboree, blending songs with lighthearted storytelling, an early hint of the screen persona fans would later love. But music was only the beginning. By the late 40s, Ken's charisma drew him into film roles, especially Western-themed musicals and cowboy pictures. Ken Curtis also built a steady film career, often appearing in movies that blended music with frontier storytelling, a perfect fit for someone with a strong singing voice and a lifelong love of cowboy culture. His work soon put him alongside some of Hollywood's biggest Western icons. He became a familiar face in John Ford films, sharing the screen with legends like John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara. These weren't small cameos. Curtis held his own in roles that mattered. Even so, he never limited himself to big productions. He took on smaller westerns and low-budget adventure films that later developed loyal fan followings. Curtis wasn't chasing fame. He was drawn to characters with grit and sincerity. But everything changed with the role that would define him forever. Festus Hagen. In 1964, Gunsmoke needed fresh energy after Dennis Weaver's departure, and Ken stepped in. Festus was originally written for a single episode, but viewers connected with him instantly. With his scratchy voice, offbeat humor, and unpolished charm, Festus felt real. Tough, yet warm, funny, yet fiercely loyal, he quickly became the heart of the series. Ken stayed in the role for 11 years, appearing in more than 300 episodes and cementing his place in television history. Off-screen, Ken approached his work with the same commitment he showed in front of the camera. He respected Gunsmoke's legacy and never delivered anything less than his best. Even when the scripts became repetitive or the long shooting days wore him down, he stayed focused and professional. Unlike many actors who grow tired of being defined by one character, Ken embraced it. He often said he was proud to be part of a show that meant so much to American families at a time when television truly brought people together. But away from the lights and the set, Ken's life wasn't as effortless as Festus made it look. Behind the fame, he navigated heartbreak, difficult decisions, and personal losses that most fans never knew about. Through all of it, one person became his anchor, his wife, whose quiet strength supported him in ways the public never saw. While Ken often played the loyal cowboy on screen, his real love story was far more complicated. Before finding the lifelong partnership he shared with Tori, he went through 2 marriages that ended quietly and sadly. His first marriage was to actress Lorraine Page in 1943. Back when he was just beginning to build his music career, Lorraine had a few acting credits and moved in the same Hollywood circles, and the two married young, caught up in the rush of show business and the uncertainty of wartime America. But the marriage was short-lived. Few details remain. But those who knew them said their careers pulled them in different directions, and they eventually drifted apart. Ken's second marriage attracted attention because of his bride. In 1952, he married Barbara Ford, daughter of legendary director John Ford. By then, Ken was already acting in Ford and John Wayne's westerns, and becoming part of the Ford family brought both prestige and pressure. Barbara had grown up under a demanding father, and Ken, modest, private, and uninterested in Hollywood politics, never fully fit into that world. After more than 12 years, the strain of fame, Ken's commitment to Gunsmoke, and Barbara's own ambitions eventually pushed them apart. They divorced quietly in 1964, with Ken handling the split with his usual dignity. 2 years later, everything changed when he met Tori Ern Connolly. Unlike his previous partners, Tori had no connection to show business and no desire for fame. She was warm, grounded, and instantly understood Ken as a person, not a public figure. Their relationship grew through simple moments: road trips, home-cooked meals, shared laughter that didn't need an audience. Though they never had children together, family life was still at the heart of their home. Tori had 2 children from a previous marriage, and Ken embraced them wholeheartedly, becoming a steady, loving father figure. He often said that life with Tori was one of his greatest blessings. She softened him. The hard-working, serious actor became more relaxed, more present. She encouraged him to slow down, enjoy life beyond Hollywood, and stay grounded after Gunsmoke ended. Together they traveled for pleasure, not work. Fishing trips, long drives, small-town Western festivals. Fans recognized Ken everywhere, but the attention never unsettled Tori. She understood exactly what he meant to people and welcomed it with grace. In their later years, Ken and Tori settled into a quiet life far from Hollywood's chaos. They stayed devoted to one another for decades, a rare kind of loyalty in any world, especially in show business. But even their calm, steady partnership wasn't free of challenges. Ken had always lived away from the spotlight, avoiding the drama that came with fame. He was grounded, private, and rarely involved in controversy. Still, even someone as cautious as Ken couldn't escape it entirely, and a few moments in his life drew unexpected attention. The biggest came in 1987, years after Gunsmoke ended. CBS announced a reunion movie, Gunsmoke, Return to Dodge. With James Arness returning as Marshall Dillon, fans naturally assumed Ken Curtis would step back into the role of Festus, a character he had played in more than 300 episodes and who had become one of the show's most beloved figures. But when the movie aired, Festus was missing. Viewers were shocked, and questions spread quickly. Had Ken fallen out with the cast? Was he retired? Was he ill? The truth was far simpler and far more disappointing. Ken had been invited back, but negotiations collapsed almost immediately. Sources said he was offered a salary far below what he felt was fair for such an iconic role. He declined, not out of pride, but because he believed he deserved better after giving so much of his life to the show. Some fans understood, others felt let down. The studio never explained the situation, and Ken never commented, leaving the mystery and the frustration to linger on its own. Like many Hollywood myths, the rumors around Ken eventually dissolved into nothing. Imagination, not reality. One of the few surprises in his public life came from his politics. While most Western stars avoided taking sides, Ken quietly supported Barry Goldwater in 1964 and later campaigned for Ronald Reagan in 1976. It made him one of the rare Western actors to take a clear political stance, earning both admiration and criticism. Through it all, Ken's personal life stayed private. His wife, Tori, his partner for more than 30 years, rarely appeared in public and never sought attention. She stayed out of controversy, gave almost no interviews and supported Ken with warmth and quiet loyalty, but even with such a steady foundation, life had its challenges. Fame faded, health shifted, and real-life struggles emerged, battles no amount of Hollywood success could protect them from. To millions, Ken Curtis was the dependable cowboy, strong, steady, unshakable. But off-camera, his life was far more complicated. He faced health issues, private doubts, and the emotional weight of a long career. Through every high and low, Tori was beside him. After Gunsmoke, Ken slowly stepped back from the spotlight. He didn't vanish, but he chose a slower pace, smaller roles, meaningful projects, and more time with family. He appeared in the 1983 series The Yellow Rose, offering a comforting presence from a fading era of Westerns. His final film role came in 1991's Conaher, where he played an aging stagecoach driver, simple, honest, and perfectly suited to him. On April 28, 1991, Ken died peacefully in his sleep at age 74, with Tori by his side. His passing shocked many. He had seemed healthy, and there were no signs it was coming. Just a quiet end to a life lived with dignity. According to his wishes, his ashes were scattered across the flatlands of Colorado, where he grew up. A final tribute to a man who carried the true spirit of the West. Not the Hollywood myth, but the real thing. Quiet, tough, humble, and deeply rooted in